Hi, my name's Wade Pilkington and I've been building a 1949 setup and beg for Prefect 4 door. As you can see, we're currently going through the footage, which is all photographs. I basically got the body and the chassis and that was it. I've had to do everything myself, from upgrading the chassis with a box system through to designing my own centre part of the chassis, making my own chassis supports for the rear axle, 4-bar and sway bar system, moving on then to mounting the gearbox, prop shaft explosion hoops, welding the front suspension, which is Rodline International, boxing the chassis all the way through, rejigging the chassis because it was a little bit out of square. It's now within 1 to 2 millimeters at all angles. I then continue then to rebuild the body, as you can see by the photographs, cutting out the rust, putting all new hand fabricated panels in. I actually built the bending machine to bend the metal. As you can see, lots of work gone into the body there. Well, basically I've done the metal, I've welded it, taken the metal back and built it up with weld. There is very, very small amounts of plastic, putty, whatever you want to call it, in there. It's all welded and ground back, and you can see that quite prominently in the photographs that you're now viewing. You can see the handmade bulkhead there with the body and the chassis on the ground. You can see the amount of work that's gone in there, and there's very minimal skimming in there. Front chassis has been skimmed a bit, there's pieces in there. This front bulkhead handmade, welded in, a little bit of skim in there. After that's taken back, there's hardly anything there. There I am making the internal tunnel. You can see it there again, there's a tunnel. There it all, finished item there coming through. Before it was hammerited, everything, and then sprayed with plastic sealant. Now you can see the wings are attached. Had the wings prepped by Finton at FE Ellis's down in Surrey Way, and you can see me going through here where some of the repairs have been done. Original floorboards. You can see all the new work in there, from the front window right to the back. I built the whole floor, the seating system, everything was built by hand. There was nothing there. You can see the new part there, and the welding right the way in through. In the corners, ground back, and then just painted black hammerite. Windows areas were repaired, they were bad. The sides were repaired there. That's all brand new there, that's all one piece steel, all made there by myself. As you can see it now, it's all handmade. All the way through that's handmade, it's all hidden now by the paint. As I said before, black hammerite with anti-stone chip. Done the same on the driver's side. Had to build the bodywork there. Wings are on now. Just lining up the tyres and wheels there just to get ready. So a lot of work went into the bodywork. You now see the work down there. This is the bonnet done by Finton, 104 louvers, 4-inch wide. We have the same in the boot and the wheel arch at the back of the car. We're running a Rover engine, as I said before, 4 litre. Inside of the car, now as you can see, I've cut out the old firewalls, built all the way through. That's now been replaced. I've redone the wings and the inner parts of the body. That's all been replaced now. I've done that. Wasn't happy with the work I did there. That's actually 8 pieces of metal in there when you see the final item, which I will take it later photographs. Inside the car, well, as you can see, there's the homemade chassis, all the rails, arches, suspensions in, floor pans in. Don't forget, I made all the machines to bend this metal and fabricate this by hand. I've covered the gearbox. You can see the muff divers, that's the only exhaust system on the car, bombs that is. Looking through the car, you can see the work I've done there underneath on the chassis rails. And now we're getting inside again, seeing the flooring going in. The exhaust go underneath the axle now, not over it. The seats had to be narrowed 6 inches on the frames to get them in the car. There's a fuel pump going near side down to the front. It's got a cooler on there as well. It's got a Fram filter, stainless fuel tank we made, handmade. All the fittings are aluminium that we got from Speedflow. You see the bulkhead going in there. Another shot of the tunnel. Another shot of the back end there. Sway bar, 4 bars. Fuel tank fitted in stainless. Not sure how much it's going to hold. Everything was handmade by myself on the steel fabrication side there. All welded in, MIG'd or TIG welded. As you can see, we're starting to build the inside up now. Fuel pump with a 4 bar. Goes from fuel cooler up to the regulator and then into the 4 down trough. Weber carburetors. I've redone the exhaust system now, changed the supports on the exhaust. As you can see, some fabbing work in the back end there. A lot of fabrication, a lot of time gone into this car on one-off pieces of work, even the making of the seat supports. Very time consuming. Trying to do the best we can with the amount of time we've got with the equipment we had. You can see the gauge system in now, and you can see the all-in-one hand-built pedal box, pot brown steering column, motor liter steering wheel, Morris Minor ducts inside there to blow onto the windows, brand new electric heating system for the windows and in car, inner wheel arches fabbing, front suspension Rodline International. We've made some modifications on the brakes here now. 4-pot calipers on Capris. We're probably going up to high spec calipers, 285 rotors. Engine components, well, we went for a period of running this with 2 twin choke 38 downdrafts. Looked very nice in the car. Probably one of the best performing manifolds carburetors for this type of engine. Tom Walkinshaw headers. Then decided that I'd like to change that, so I went for 4 downdraft carburetors. As you can see, all the plumbing done. We've now to take that apart, and later you'll see in the video that we've put the 4 downdrafts on with all the necessary plumbing. That's the fuel line front to rear, fuel filter, fuel cooler. There she is, right by the pump. That's a 4.5 pound pump coming from a Frankfurter into a stainless fuel tank. There she is. The tank stainless, fabricated, baffles by my brother-in-law. There's a cool cap there coming from America that's now fitted. You can only fill the car from inside the boot. Engine now in again. We're now showing you with a 4 downdrafts. Totally had to redo the carburetor system because the person I bought them off had painted them black and blue. As you can still see some paint inside the carburetors. It took me a month to clean these on my time off, but now we've got them running with new trumpets going well. There's the brake lines in stainless. On the advice of Tim Hammond, we changed the blue fittings out for stainless, so it's stainless tube and stainless fittings all the way through the car with a dual servo and a Metro master cylinder. This will now change, so when I get new photographs they go on. You can see the amount of work that's gone into the car. Try to keep it clean and tidy. That opening there is now where the servo will basically just come inside the car about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So I've used an old-fashioned chocolate tin. That's the servo. That's now defunct. We've rebuilt that with a different type of system. Pedals stay in with the master inside and the servo under the floor. Axle was shortened by Andy Robertson. You can see the BX calipers, 4-bar system. These were made at BP Corriton. As long as you don't see this video, we don't mind, do we? But there you go, there's the axle in place with sway bar. Just holding up the exhaust when we look. It's all now been painted underneath grey. Axle is now yellow. There's the muff divers, one of the competition. Coming through, starting to come together now. You can see the fram filter behind the axle. Shock absorbers come from Wisbeach. Paul at Wisbeach, really helpful. Calipers, that's all changed out, stainless fittings all the way through. All the pads are fitted and been tested. It's an 8-inch rear end out of a Mustang. Thanks to Adam Sayers for that, who managed to get that for me. Electrics, I am not an electrician, and I was scared at my wits to do this, but got the drawings, spoke to a few people, and I plodded on carefully with the kit. And on completion of the wiring of the car, the only problem we had was that I put the wrong wire on the alternator for the electrical gauge, voltmeter, and a company who supplied me with the gauges with the oil pressure switch sent me the wrong pressure sender. So the actual only fault so far on the car, from my basic electrical knowledge right the way through to wiring the car up, was one cable in the wrong position. There's the gauges, which are 12 volts with copies of my original dash gauges from a Prefect. Had a few problems with the people doing that. Ignition system in underneath the chair. Got a rev counter on the column. All the gauges work. All the electrics in the car work. We only had, like I said, the one problem, the alternator, which we fixed pretty quickly. There's the brake light for the dip high beam. There's the gauges panel fitted. Everything works. We've had no issues. We got good voltage, 14.5 volts coming out the alternator, feeding the battery in the rear in the car. Changes of update, well, because of changing, that setup no longer exists that you're seeing now. The trumpets are now in place. I'm feeding oil through the braided line off the bottom of the oil pump up into the top of the distributor to feed on the distributor drive, which is a weak point on the V8 engines. We now have a pressure switch and pressure light, and the braided hose is feeding the top into the distributor for the cog. We take the oil off now from a fit from Speedflow, which will feed into a remote filter and a remote cooler with thermostatic control. So later pictures will show that. Engine close-ups, we did a lot of changes. So currently you're seeing the engine now with the old filters on top. We then put on the correct 60mm high trumpets, give it a lot more torque. As you can see, a lot of work in there. You've got the flamethrower ignition system. I've never ever seen such a big spark come off ignition core or spark plugs with this system. Petronics flamethrower, absolutely superb. There's the engine in place. As I said, trumpets are on, which we'll see later. Full electronic ignition on the car. Batteries in the left hand side of the boot. There's the louvered boot and the louvered wheel, matching the same dimensions and spreading as the bonnet. We've got the 5-spoke Americans on front and rear, coming together nicely now. So we took the front off. Now you can see the proper trumpets on the carburetors. Much better noise. Everything's wired up. We're just testing the whole car now before we roll it out. Whatever, I've kind of bought the best of what I can buy for the car, and there is some very good stuff on this car. There's a Aston Martin, HT leads, good plugs, good electronic system. Well, there's the Prefect rolled out for the first time next to my Mercedes. She's looking good. That was old setup. Now obviously now you've seen the new setup with the trumpets. There's the boot open with the battery left hand side. As I said, from underneath that window you're looking at now, right underneath the front window was all handmade by myself with the tools I built to make that. Looking out the front of the car, looks superb with the louvers. Can't wait to drive my puppy. There she is. Wouldn't mind running them without a bonnet. As you can see, she's pretty low to the ground. I was very surprised when I put her on the ground. And you'll see by one of the photographs me standing next to her that she only comes up to my arms. From the rear, that's the colour scheme. From the swage line, it's going to be signal yellow on top, and below the water swage line there, that'll be Mercedes silver. So it's going to be two-tone. There you go, that's how low she is, and I'm 6 foot.